Oh, Forrest is jamming.
Why is your intro so much groovier than mine? I blame Jimmy.
Because I'm groovier by and large, I would
How
say.
dare you?
I guess that makes sense.
Skeptalk.
This one is... I don't want to hear from you. The Skeptalk intro is great, but this one is significantly funkier, and I like that a lot.
The worst part is the best one's probably the one for the interview ones that we don't do all the time, the hostility. We do those like once a month anymore, and that one's got the best bop.
Yeah, this is pretty rocking. It gets us going.
I love it.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I missed you guys last week. I was off doing a little road trip. Forrest and I were just backstage talking about road trips. I like them. They're getting a little more difficult for Bevan and I, but we were down to Texas to do a family thing, which I survived. Survived Texas and the family thing. No offense to you guys, my friends who live in Texas, but my God, that state sucks. Can we just agree on that?
It's terrible. Like driving is the worst there. The shoulder is not a lane. It's madness.
It's madness. Then we went to Arkansas, which probably is worse than Texas, but nonetheless, we made it through Arkansas, got into Nashville to see some friends there, had a birthday bash there for me. I'm now 68 years old. Yeah, my gosh, Forrest, can you imagine being that old? Huh? I didn't think I was going to live as long as I have. Like I couldn't imagine being 25 when I was like a kid. Now I'm 30 and I don't know what's going on. I want to commission some artist to do a mock-up. I know these people that do these things. I want someone to do an art rendition of Forrest at 68. What Forrest will look like at 68. Wouldn't that be fun?
I'm either going to be horrific or like dashingly handsome. I want to get like the gray just on the sides. You know what I mean? And like walk around like a red and black bathrobe, get a pipe.
Those gray curls. Come on, man.
I'd be tight.
Freaking
awesome.
Swoon. Okay.
I'm already starting to get a little laugh. I'm getting little wrinkles going up in here. And that's like all I'm getting. Just lines radiating because I can't stop grinning all the time. And I'm like, this is what it's going to be for the rest of my life. I'm just going to be one big wrinkle.
By the way, your Texas friends would not disagree that Texas is garbage. We have our oases. That's why Arkansas is worse. It doesn't have an Austin.
You're right. Well, Arkansas has no oasis.
That's right.
Texas has
also,
the group I love in Houston, the group I love in Austin. So yeah.
Dallas even.
Yeah.
San Antonio. We got Anthony over there. So yeah.
Aron in Dallas.
I think the major difference between Texas and Arkansas is that in Texas they can spell the word Texas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that could be. That could be. Also, I have not met a single but it's not the same in Arkansas. I've not in all across Texas. Every set of siblings I have ever met. Weird fun fact for people in Arkansas. They're gonna be like, "What? All the siblings here I've ever met not dating."
That's impressive. That's impressive.
That's right. Not dating each other.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't been in the Ozark Hills where I grew up because things get really sketchy there really fast. Right. You're not far from there, of course. You know what I'm talking about.
Word.
Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah, it's fun. Fun fact about Arkansas, they actually, the toothbrush was invented in Arkansas. And you know that because if it was invented anywhere else, it would have been called the teeth brush, but they only had the one to worry about. You know what I mean?
God, I didn't see that. I didn't see that joke coming. That's a good one. Forrest, good to see you, man. We haven't been able to do a show on the line yet, so it's glad to be here with you, man.
I am stoked as shit to be here. Seriously. Little known fact for the audience watching, Dave actually is the one who launched my career in the atheist space. I was on TikTok and YouTube. I was just doing science videos, and anybody who's a creator knows that it's really difficult, especially early on, to kind of branch out and enter new niches. And so I was just doing science content like crazy, and I was following our friend Genevieve. Genevieve introduced me to you, and you were like, come on my show. And so I did your podcast talk show thing there, and that's what started this whole side of my career. That's what got started on the ACA. That's what got me started with Jimmy. That's what got me started on the stuff that I do independent. Like everything came out of that spot on your show.
I discovered you when you were just a little TikToker with 1.2 million followers, just struggling along.
No
on
prospects.
But what's funny too, Bevan had found you on TikTok and was following you and loved your content. And then when she would always ask, who's on the show this week? And I would say, and then that week I said, we got a guy named Forrest Valkai. We found Genevieve found him on TikTok. Forrest Valkai, are you kidding me? I love him.
Oh,
So
that's awesome,
she was
dude.
so excited, and we got a chance to meet up down in Gulf Shores earlier this year and go have breakfast, and that was so cool to hang out and just have some time together after knowing each other online. Yeah. So anyway,
surreal.
Really, it was really, wasn't it? Yeah. That's what I love, those experiences, those, I call them moments. If anyone knows me, it's all about the moments. But you get to know someone online, so to speak, virtually, and you get a certain relationship developed online, and you have this sense of knowing someone. And then when you get to meet in person, when there's face-to-face contact and you get that human hug and that human element, it just adds such a layer to it that's just so, to me, it's just precious. And that's why I value getting out to conferences and going to speak at these conferences and going to secular groups, and just, when we're traveling, we try to meet up with folks, and as much as we can. It's getting more difficult. We used to do more of it, but that touch, just sharing a drink, sharing a meal like we did there with you and Andrew and Bevan. That was just so cool.
So freaking nice. So freaking. It's amazing. I love the networking aspect, just getting to meet so many different people that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet otherwise, and like people that I didn't even know. Like I met John, the skeptic, the floating Bridget circle here on YouTube. Yeah. And like friggin' I had seen like very briefly a little bit of stuff. He made a response video when Kent Hovind tried to whack me and all these things. And like I had seen a little bit of his stuff, but then getting to meet this dude in person, all of a sudden, like, he's the nicest guy I've ever met, and like I've got to friggin' like go check out his whole channel and blow him up. John, if you're watching this, I still have all those pictures, by the way. I still have all of them. I didn't delete a single one, and they bring me joy to this day.
About. Tell people what John. Okay. John has a certain trick. If you're ever in person with John, guard your phone. That's all I'm going to say. Just enough.
So good, dude.
We've got calls lined up already. I want to give a shout out to a special friend of mine. I told him I would. He's in the UK, so he couldn't watch live tonight, but he's a huge fan of yours, Forrest. He's a special person to me. His name's Gavin Bowyer, and he's in the UK. I'm not sure what town, but he's several years ago when I first started doing Dying Out Loud, he reached out to me and wanted to do he does line portraits. He's an artist. He's incredible. And he wanted to do a portrait of me. And so I sent him a picture, and he made a line drawing of me, and I put it on my some of the shirts we have. It's the picture of me smoking a cigar. It looks like my face is exploding. And he wanted to try to capture what ALS does to me. And he really nailed it. I saw when he sent me the picture, it just was like, oh my God, wow. It was perfect. And I'm going to use it as the cover of my book when I finish my next book called Dying Out Loud.
Nice.
It's that kind of a picture to me. And I just want to say hi, Gavin. And he's battling cancer right now. He's been dealing with that for the last 6 months or so. And we've been in touch, and he's doing okay, but it's taking a toll on him, and it's affected the way, as he told me, that he looks at his mortality and life and death, and those are the kind of conversations that I tend to have with people for obvious reasons. But he's going to try to call into the show one of these nights when he's not too tired. He's been going through some treatment, so he just wasn't up to it tonight. I think it's like 1 a.m. over there right now, or 2 a.m. But anyway, shout out to you, Gavin. We love you, buddy. Get better. Forrest, let's take some phone calls. What do you think?
I'm into it. I'm down.
All right. Let's see. We got, I hope I say it right. Hayard, he, him in India.
Agnostic. Hard. Yeah, his name's Hard. Yeah.
Hard. Okay. I knew I'd get it wrong.
It's okay. I just talked to this guy a couple of days ago.
You're on the line with Forrest and Dave. What's on your mind?
So Forrest and Dave, this is something that I've dealt with a few times. Basically, where I live, I'm surrounded by they're not bad people, They're not dumb people, but like what happens is you'll be talking to someone and suddenly they talk about the LGBT community. And here's the thing, over here, like where I live, it's a like relatively progressive area. So they won't go like a wish off with their heads or anything, but they'll just express a little bit of like disgust at it. And like, sometimes you get the same old argument of like it's unethical because like they can't naturally give birth, or like God made male and female this way and that's how it's meant to be. And my question was, how do I get them to apply the same logical principles over there that they would literally anywhere else? Like, I could, if we're talking about vaccines, right? And I show you, like, if I showed them a literature review about the efficacy of vaccines, they probably listen to me. But like, if I showed them like the best like ethical arguments that like homosexuality is nothing wrong, or that like if I showed them like a list of papers about the science of being trans, there's a lot of people who probably still wouldn't listen, who probably still be stuck in their heels like, but like, I don't care about that. Like my holy book says this, therefore I want to do this. And that's a bit difficult because I happen to be a part of this community. And like, I can't really have it forever, So like, I wanted to ask you, because like, as someone who wants to be a biologist and also someone who's part of this the LGBT community, I wanted to ask like, how do we this does carry like some personal implications for me. So I want to ask you, how would you deal with this?
Yeah, Dave, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think I would let you take that first. You're talking about how to get people to let go of dogmatic thinking and apply logical principles. That is tough because there are certain areas that people tend to just allow themselves to capitulate to religious ideology or ideas that don't make sense on any other, like you mentioned, Hard, any other subject. They would dismiss this line of thinking, but they let themselves buy into it, especially when it comes to religion. But Forrest, you deal more in a scientific world than I do. What do you do for folks? How do you get them to switch?
So the question of how do you get people to drop dogmatic thinking is literally the question that this channel is built on. What you were talking about, our careers, like what do we do here? What do we do on AXP? We don't freaking know. We've been trying for years and years. As far as like, arguing scientifically for LGBT people, you touched on this, but like there's a mountain of scientific reasons why if you are actually properly skeptical, if you are applying skepticism properly, and if you are studying biology, and if you are learning about the natural world, you would logically come to a support for the LGBT community. Like it makes no sense to be bigoted in this way if you're being naturalistic. Say what?
Yeah, it's just natural human variation. Like, but
absolutely.
They're like but they're treated as though it's some sort of deformity or something like that. They don't use that word, but like that's kind of how they think of it.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah, it's abnormal, therefore it's not moral, or it's not good. We've heard this a million times. Never mind the fact that we've observed homosexual behavior in over 1,500 different animal species, and there are even there are some really good papers out there that are starting to kind of just like change the thinking a little bit and saying, why are we pretending like just because heterosexuality is productive in this way and is more common in this way, that's like some sort of a goal or a normalcy or a moral high ground? Maybe the fact that we see homosexual behavior, or at the very least bisexual behavior, in so many different animal species kind of indicates the fact that this is just a thing you can do, and that we have to remember that nature doesn't have these labels, doesn't have these classifications. They're just doing whatever they want to do, and if it's productive, it is, and if it's not, it's not. But that's not the point of living. When when people come to me and say, well, you study evolution, so shouldn't you be wanting to, come up with some bullshit eugenic argument of saying, oh, well, only the strongest, best people should survive? No, because I'm not worried about, what are humans going to look like phenotypically 600,000 years from now. That's not my concern with me finding happiness in my life today. That's not what I'm trying. You know what I mean? And I don't think it should be for anybody else.
Do they realize that most people can still reproduce? Do they realize that?
Yes. Well, and that's the thing, is that what it really comes down to, and you had mentioned, would you use this kind of thinking for anything else, which is my favorite argument when I talk to theists all the time. What I find is most productive, if we start getting into the science of things and saying, well, here's the scientific reason for being gay, here's the science behind being trans, those things are fine to talk about validity, but very often we get into this Mott and Bailey situation where we're making this logical leap of like, well, I can justify it scientifically, therefore I guess these people should be treated like humans. And that's fucked up. Like, human rights have to come first. And so what I would present
with morality, like, that is not a rabbit hole we should go down with.
Precisely. So what I would present is, if we're talking about, LGBT people, the argument, well, they can't reproduce. Okay, infertile people can't reproduce. My wife and I don't plan on having children, at least not anytime soon. Is our heterosexual marriage illegitimate because we're not reproducing? What if I get a vasectomy? Am I not a man anymore? Am I not straight anymore? Am I not allowed to be in a marriage anymore? Should I have my rights taken away if my nuts are taken away? Like, what are we actually arguing for here? And when you look at like everything that comes out of this, whenever people say, well, LGBT people have this thing that's different, therefore they're strange, they're bad, they're weird. These are all things that also happen with straight people, and nobody gives a fuck. And that's kind of the major issue, is that like you were applying a different set of moral rules to these people. And it's not just, well, I don't like that he sleeps with a man. It's that, well, I don't like that, when I see it, it's different, and it's pushing sexuality in my face. Okay, what about literally every day, all the time, when heterosexual people are holding hands and kissing and being in love around you? What about every single love song about a woman? What about every single movie,
person I've ever met over here. Sorry for interrupting.
You're fine.
Like, yeah, I'm like the only queer person openly queer person I've met in my district, in India ever. And like literally everywhere I go, I'm in high school, by the way. In high school, I see like straight couples like holding hands, or not holding hands, but like, doing what couples do. And they're like, you're pushing my sexuality on, you're pushing your sexuality on me. No, I see your sexuality every single day, whether I like it or not, right? I'm just saying, hey, I exist. That's not like pushing it on you. If you don't want to see it, don't see it, goddammit.
I think a lot of the dogmatic thinking that we deal with is based on indoctrination. We have to just acknowledge that all of us suffer from indoctrination based upon our surroundings, the way we're raised, the home we're brought up in, the friend group, the peer group that we have to break. There has to be something that breaks us out of that, or we will continue to live in the same conditions that our parents lived in, so to speak. And there's just a lot of indoctrination when it comes to LGBTQ issues, when it comes to science and religion and those questions that help us evaluate the world we live in. And that dogmatism, I think, is informed by the indoctrination that we all experience. And so something in our life has to come along and dislodge that in us to get us to think different. Don't you think?
Yeah. It's why I love, this new generation is so very ready to do away with tradition and to dismantle, old type of thing. Because that's, for me, I love the idea of just anything that's like, if I was raised on this, well, this is the way it's always been. And you just have, this is the way I was taught to do it this way. They were taught. And I hated that my whole life. And I was the weird one for saying, I don't give a fuck if it's traditional. Is it moral? Is it reasonable? Does it make logical sense? And now we have so many people that are willing to kind of like take that lead. And I'm surprised that there's such like I'm not in India, so I don't understand the culture too well. So forgive me if this is an ignorant thing to say, but like, you guys have like Hijra people and whatnot. Wouldn't you expect the culture there would be a little bit more understanding of the concept of gender fluidity and sexual fluidity a little bit more?
Yeah, the thing is with Hijras, I don't know exactly what it's like, but it's like they basically believe to have like divine powers, so they're called like weddings or like before a child is born to give blessings.
Yeah.
But usually they're seen as like unclean, right? In the sense of like people would rather not have their child be one of them. So it's like it is hypocrisy in a way. Like you want their blessings, but you also think that they're unclean. Like, oh, what the hell are you doing over here? And the Hijras face a lot of discrimination over here. They couldn't vote until 1994. We got independence in 1947 for like 50 years or something. Like they couldn't vote, and even now a lot of them, they're like homeless. They face like violence, denial in healthcare. A lot of what like the trans people in the U.S. face.
Yeah, what bothers me the most is when we have people.
I see in your call queue and the label you call yourself an agnostic theist. Do you? I'm curious about that label. Do you have a God belief?
I mean, like until a few months ago, I did, but then I was like, okay, I should probably like apply all like here's the thing. Like first, I have not three moral, but like I have three principles upon which I would like to live by. And those are rationality, integrity, and empathy. I tried to apply, so I decided I'd apply rationality to my belief about God, and I'd apply integrity in the sense that like being honest with my results.
Right.
It turns out like a godwin hold up, like the counter arguments that atheists provide, they were just like good. Like, I don't really have much of an interesting like story when it comes to this. What I think about God is like, probably not real. If he's real, he's a douchebag. I don't care.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
You're probably basically an agnostic. With I wouldn't say that you have a theistic belief if that's your attitude toward God, but that's fine. I mean, it's kind of my approach. If there's a God there, I'll need to see some evidence, and if it's the God of the Bible, we're going to have words because he's not he's not a good dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna go full Nietzsche. If I ever meet him, I'm gonna go full Nietzsche on him. Right?
Yeah. But thanks for calling, Hardy. We're gonna get a couple other calls here, but thanks for keep asking the questions.
Yeah, thanks so much for calling in, man.
Yeah, I will.
All right,
take
buddy.
care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
One of the most annoying things when we talk about LGBT issues is here in America. I don't know if it's this way out of the places, but like here in America, we have a major issue with people saying that XYZ thing is going to turn kids gay. It's going to indoctrinate people into being gay. Yeah, I wonder if you have any gay people watching hard, if you're still listening, how many of those straight people around you have turned you straight? How many times has that happened when you're around? I remember I was talking on Shannon Q's show a little while ago about like there was a big issue when Lucky Charms released the unicorn-shaped marshmallows, and it's like everyone was saying, "Oh my God, this is gonna make kids gay. They're putting this gay cereal out there. The kids are gonna be eating the gay every day." And it's like I tried them; they tasted like Lucky Charms. At no point was I like, "Oh, neat, a more unicorn. I wonder what dick tastes like." It wasn't like. It just doesn't flip that switch in your brain. And my biggest issue is if eating a marshmallow or getting some paint on your fingernails or seeing a rainbow is enough to turn you gay, you're just gay. That's all that is. Like for the rest of us, it's not that easy. You might just be gay. I'll see you at Pride, bro. Like, I'm sorry.
It's just such nonsense. The whole Target thing and just
the Target thing, yeah.
God, are we just what century are we living in? By the way, we've got there's several ways you can support the show. One is obviously patreon.com/calltheline. And in that light, we really want to beef up our Patreon support. We've got we've got some Patreon goals. I'm stumbling here, but here's what I'm trying to say. We've got some Patreon goals that we'd like to see happen. We want to increase the Patreon support so we can lock in LineCon, which is a conference that we're hoping to have next year. But we need our Patreon support beefed up a bit to have that. So we're looking to hit some goals. If we hit 700 patrons, right now we're at 520 or 514. So we need to beef that up. And so if you believe in what the line is doing, if you think that we're putting out good content, we're bringing you good conversations, then we would appreciate you supporting that. If we hit 700 patrons, Matt will get the cat tattoo. Everybody, if you watched the fundraiser we had a few weeks ago for Recovering from Religion, you know that Seth had a wonderful drawing. I mean, that artwork is beyond description. I mean, you can tell he studied long and hard to get to that level of artistry.
I hadn't actually seen the drawing until now. That's so good.
And we haven't named the cat yet, so we're just calling him Cat. But Matt is going to get that tattoo if we get to 700 patrons. So, folks, you know what to do.
Fantastic.
If we get to 1,000 patrons, beginning a patron exclusive series where hosts watch terrible religious movies together, starting with Matt and Jimmy watching God's Not Dead. And you guys know you want to see that. So come on, people, let's do this. Also tonight, as you know, if you're a regular viewer, super chats of $5 or more we read on the show at the end of the show. So call in with that or chat. Speaking of chat, we Jimmy put up a poll a little bit ago, and the poll question was this: do you believe your consciousness will live on after you die? And 7% of you said yes. So I would love to hear from you. We've got lines open. Yeah, call in. We've got lines open. What is that number? Put it up there for me, Jimmy. I don't know it. There it is. 720-619-2288. Call in and talk to us about that. As you know, Dying Out Loud is all about dealing with the questions of life and death and what's after death and how we approach our mortality, how we deal with health issues, those kind of challenges that many of us face. So we'd love to talk to you about your views of what happens after life, after death. So call in. Let's have a conversation. If that's something you would like to do, we'd love to hear from you. And lines are open. Coming up this week, Wednesday night, tomorrow, we've got Matt and Actual Jake on the Hang Up of Hannah and Jake. Thursday on Transatlantic, we've got Arden and Katy. Sunday, Matt D and Mandisa on the Sunday show. And then Monday, our very own Forrest Valkai on Skeptalk with Roxana Felig. More of Forrest on Sunday. So that's the lineup coming up.
I'm stoked about freaking having Jake on. Dude, I loved Hannah and Jake. I went through their whole, like their atheist Bible study is what got me through so much of this. Like it was so freaking good. Such a good series. I've been fans of theirs for a long time. Awesome.
I need to have him on my show then. We need to have that. But Jimmy, let's talk about that. All right, let's go back to the phones. We got folks waiting. Sorry, folks, we'll get to you. We see that some of you are waiting a long time, but be patient. We'll get to you. We've got Fox, she, her in Oklahoma.
Hey.
You're on the line with Forrest and Dave. Oops, not yet. Let me click the right button.
You will be in a minute anyway.
Hey, Fox.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, my name is Fox.
Hi there.
So I had
pleasure to meet you.
Questions for you guys.
Okay.
I'm an atheist. I have been for almost 5 years probably now.
Mm-hmm.
I broke away from Christianity because I had just too many issues with the Bible contradicting itself. And I had a question about why do you think they started religion? Why do you think humans started religion? And that's pretty much my main question, yeah. Is why do you think humans created it? To, you know, escape death or, try to evade that?
Yeah. I've got a few answers. Dave, you go first.
Yeah, I've touched on this before, and I think that one of the big things that religion has done for people, or the reasons that man has throughout history, I think, been prone to create gods and religions is to try to explain the world around them, the things that they didn't understand.
Yeah.
When they saw lightning, they had to figure out what's that? What's that thing in the sky? What's that thunder sound? So they create gods to make sense of it. And I think one of the bigger issues also is to try to make sense of what happens after we die. Dealing with mortality and wanting there to be more than that, just living and dying, to create stories that will make this life make more sense or have more meaning. And so that's where I think that stories of the afterlife began to develop, and heaven and hell and things that would try to give some permanence to something that seemed to be very temporary. I mean, you got to remember, years back, lifespan was pretty short, 40, 50, 60 years. You're here, then you're gone. And so a lot of people probably didn't like that, and they thought, let's create some stories to make this thing go on a little longer. Those are some of my thoughts. Forrest, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of other things that I would add to it, because I would have said the exact same things to start with. And then also, one thing that's important is that we have an evolutionary bias towards false positives when we're trying to assess the world around us. What I mean by that is, if you hear a rustling in the bush and you assume that it's the wind and it's actually a tiger, you're lunch. But if you assume that it's a tiger and it's actually the wind, then nothing bad happens to you. You have still survived. You know what I mean? So there's always that impetus, that evolutionary pressure to assume agency whenever you're around something, to assume that there's something there when there isn't. And you see that in our habits of. Sorry?
I'm sorry. Does it have to do with human evolution?
Yeah, it's so like there's these patterns that we see now in the way that human minds work. Things like prosody, patternicity, things like apophenia, things like pareidolia, things where we are seeing patterns where there aren't patterns. We are seeing faces and shapes and symbols where they aren't really there. We are seeing meaning from meaningless data. We're deriving some sort of intention from it. Like Dave brought up, we don't know who made the lightning, but they're in the question already. I use the word who made the lightning, not what made the lightning. Where does the lightning come from? What is lightning made of? None of that. Just who made it. That I can only make a fire. And there's this fire in the sky that came to the ground and made a big noise. Surely somebody's up there fucking around. So that's a big part of it, is of defining that agency. And then also terror management theory is a big thing. It is much, much less scary to assume that somebody is at control, even if it's something horrible, even if it's a evil alien shapeshifters that control the whole world and all these things, some crazy evil thing like that. That is much less scary to think about and to believe in than the idea that nobody's in charge, nobody's at the controls, nobody's pushing the buttons. It's completely random. You could die at any minute. Bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people. There is no punishment. There is no reward. And we're all just here doing our best. That's a scary thought. And so inventing some sort of agency over the things that matter the most to us. Earliest religions involve things like the sun and fertility and hunting. And then we get into things like war and economics and partying and things like this that come later on as civilization develops. Giving some agency to random events and to things that we don't have control over, and pretending like there's somebody in our corner boxing for us. That gives people a lot of comfort where it wouldn't otherwise.
I can definitely see that being a big factor.
Yeah, so that's what I would say is comfort, trying to understand the world around us, and because it was our first attempt, it was our worst attempt, and we're still stuck with it thousands of years later.
Yeah.
What?
My second question was going to be: do you guys believe religiosity or like religion as a whole is bad, or kind of like neutral for the world?
When you say religion, are you talking about the organized facet of it, where churches per se, or synagogues, or mosques, or the organized component of religion? Is that what you mean by religion, or are you talking about the actual doctrine and the theology?
The actual doctrine and theology that people push on others.
Yeah, I think John Lennon had it right, that we'd be better off without religion as a whole. I just don't see when people try to tell me that religion has value, what they usually mean when you break it down is they mean the organization part of it, where there's community development and charities happening, where people, and when you break that down, it's literally people helping people. And there's no God needed.
That was the part I enjoyed about it, was the community.
Yeah. And that's what when people leave the church, for years now, I've talked to them, and if the common theme is the thing they miss the most is the community aspect of it, and the hardest thing to replicate is community. You hear that from people all over, because many atheists or non-religious people live in very religious communities, and they don't have a lot of like-minded people around them with which to do life, and so they feel a little alone and isolated, and so it's hard to replicate that. That's why I see when I go to these conferences, a lot of the people come there not to hear us wonderful speakers, but to community, to have that community, to find their tribe, and to at least have a weekend with their tribe and not be so isolated. But the religious aspect, I think, is damaging on the whole, because of the toxicity of the theology and the dogma and the control and the manipulation. And I think that does much more harm than any kind of good that it would do. And I think that the community aspect and the charity aspect that we see that is good is actually done by humans, and there's no religious God needed for that. So that's my take on that. Forrest, what do you think?
I have very similar thoughts. I think the biggest issue with trying to establish community, I know this is tangential, but just building off what you said, I think the biggest issue with trying to establish community with an atheist is that atheism is a single position on a single belief, which is, I don't believe a God is real, and that's it. So when you talk about like a Christian community, they have a lot of shared beliefs. It's not just I believe in God, it's I believe in this particular one with these particular tenets, with these particular ideals, and these particular backgrounds, and I'm going to live my life these ways. And so you have now a community immediately of people who are all doing the same kinds of things. So it's really easy to homogenize. With atheists, they're gay atheists, straight atheists, they're liberal atheists and conservative atheists, they're atheists who are really great people and atheists who are complete assholes and everything in between. And you can't say, well, this is the atheist group, therefore they all do XYZ thing. It just doesn't work out the same way. And it's one of the many, many reasons why it's ridiculous to compare us to a religion or to call us a religion. So like, I think that's, it would be a lot better and I think we'd be a lot better suited if we were to try to establish cliques that don't hinge on the label of atheism but still involve it. So like, for example, a secular humanist community would have very much more similar ideals than just a blanket atheist community, and you'd have a lot easier time establishing fellowship and building community and something like that, because if I just said this is the atheist club, I'm going to get all sorts of people that don't mesh. If I say this is the secular humanist club, they're all going to be atheists and they're all going to do the same kind of things and mesh a lot better. That's one thing. Then also back to your actual question, which is is there any good in this? No, for a lot of reasons. Religion poisons the mind, enslaves the spirit, for lack of a better word. I don't mean a literal spirit. I mean like ambition and drive and personality. And it is corrosive to societies, and it holds back progress. And so to use it as a stepping stone in our history, like I said at the beginning, it's our first attempt at science. It's our first attempt at morality. It's our first attempt at having a communal ethical code. That's great. That's a great thing in our history. That's a great thing for the foundations of culture. It is our worst attempt as well, and it needs to be moved past. There's a lot of things that were early attempts at science that we don't do anymore. There's a lot of things that were early attempts at morality that we don't do anymore. We used to believe that the Earth is flat. We used to believe that we're the center of the universe. We used to believe that the planets moved in perfect spheres. We used to believe that burying a child in a post hole at the corner of your house will stop your house from being blown over by tornadoes. We used to do a lot of dumb shit, and we don't do those things anymore. And I think religion as well. We should
it's called maturity. It's called growing up.
Exactly. We need to have the cojones to say, all right, this doesn't work. And unfortunately, like Douglas Adams says, we live in a society where you're not allowed to criticize religion. Why not? Because you're not. And that's just not good enough. You should be allowed to question everything, as a very strange skinny white man once put on a t-shirt. And you should be allowed to dismantle beliefs if they don't serve a serious purpose. So yeah, I think religion poisons everything. It's not worth having. It's not worth keeping around. That's my soapbox.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I have like one more question before I go because I have to eat something.
Sure.
What do you guys think about those creationists? Because I've actually debated Kent Hovind a couple times. How do you deal with people like that? Because I have had a hard time dealing with them because I'm a biologist and trying to explain evolution to them does not work.
I am also a biologist who debates creationists. I understand your pain. And I'm also in Oklahoma, so I understand what's going on there. I'm so sorry for everything you're going through.
I'm in Stillwater, actually.
Oh man, okay, cool. Yeah, I got some friends out there at OSU. Yeah, I would say the biggest thing as an educator is to anytime I'm going to engage in a discussion, debate, lesson, lecture, whatever it is. Excuse me, I'm real burpish because I've been drinking this soda. But anytime I'm doing these things, I always ask two questions, and those are: who am I actually talking to, and what am I trying to get out of this? What's the goal? So, like, if I'm making like a Reacteria video, I've got a Reacteria video coming out in just a couple of days.
Oh yeah, I watched that series.
I'm glad. Yeah, I've got a Reacteria come out in just a couple of days, talking about people who are trying to say that all the mass extinctions we see in the fossil record actually prove that there was a global flood. And making that video, obviously that person is never going to listen to it. If they did listen to it, they're never going to be convinced by it. I'm not actually talking to them. I'm talking to everybody who's watching that video. So, like, if I'm in a classroom and I have a really obstinate, shitty student who's going to, disagree with everything I say, at a certain point, I need to understand the fact there is nothing I can do to change your mind, but everybody else who's listening can still be convinced. So I can either waste all my time trying to pull you in and fail and never get anywhere, or I can push you further away. Nothing changes between you and I, really, but I've ended up pulling in a lot of other people. So, number one, who am I actually talking to? And number two, what is the point of what I'm doing? Is the point just to argue? It's not worth it. Is the point to actually make a difference for other people out there? Then that's worth it. There's a lot of people who are professional arguers that they get into shows like this, or they make a bunch of reaction content or whatever, and their whole job is just to argue with people. It's not worth it. It doesn't solve anything. It makes bad entertainment. It makes quality entertainment for people who then become toxic as fuck. If your point is to actually make a difference and to try to educate out of that and make other people better off, I think that's more worth it. And that's me being on my high horse for the day.
That's what I've been trying to do, educate people on evolution. And also I'm a LGBTQ activist, and I'm trying to educate people on, sex and gender and how they're different. And a lot of people don't understand it.
Even though that research has been around for literally like half a century. Yeah, exactly. And so like that's the biggest, actually almost a complete century now. And so like that's the biggest issue, is that like we live in a world where unfortunately science occasionally becomes politicized, and people decide that, we're going to trust the best doctors and scientists on everything about medicine, unless you're talking about trans people. Then all of a sudden doctors and scientists don't know what they're talking about. And if you're talking about vaccines, yes, of course, we all understand how vaccines work, unless it's the COVID vaccine. That one particular one, I know better than the National Institute of Health about them. And it's the same thing with climate change. Yeah. Oh, no, I totally understand. Environmental scientists, climatologists, meteorologists, these people, they understand their job better than I could ever understand it. That's why they went to school for it. Except in this one major overarching thing that makes all the sense. That one, I'm smarter than everybody in the world. So just like, yeah, you've got an uphill battle, and
well, you're dealing
I would
with
just
people
say,
with closed minds, and you just have to recognize there again. It's that dogmatism that's informed by indoctrination, and oftentimes it's political. But like you said, Forrest, it's not about what's right or wrong or good or bad. It's what is politically expedient for them, and they're gonna hold that line when we're talking. Yeah, but when we're debating or taking, Forrest, you and I have both taken many calls from theists or Christians who just don't seem to be interested in having an honest conversation. We have to we'll bang our heads against the wall if we think that we're trying to get through to them, but we understand that we're talking to the people who are watching, the people who are going to watch next week, next month, next year, who are needing to process their own ideas about religion and about God. And so that's why we do this kind of stuff. We know that there are certain people that we're not going to get through to. And we just talk to the people who are listening.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I wish science wasn't so politicized too these days. It's really bad.
Everything seems to be politicized these days. Everything's very polarized right now.
And that's the thing. I maintain that everything is and should be political, but the fact that things become politicized is an issue. And I know that might sound like I'm saying something redundant, but like everything being political, that's a whole 10-minute conversation about like how human rights and the right to question things and all that stuff. But like becoming a thing where I don't actually care about what the science says. I care about what my party says and things like that. Or like I'm a Republican, therefore I think this, or I'm a Democrat, therefore I think that. That is an issue. You know what I mean? If I can tell by what kind of news station you get your news from what you think about reality, there's a problem.
Well,
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for your time. I'm gonna go ahead and go. So you can
get some deep, Bach. Thanks for calling in.
Take care.
Thanks.
Take care.
Cheers. I'm so sorry you live in Oklahoma. Apologize.
Yeah, my apologies for that state.
That's horrible.
The numbers, we've got lines open. We got some calls to get to, but lines are open 720-619-2288. And if you do want to talk, we'd love to hear your thoughts about consciousness after death, because I'd be fascinated to talk that subject with you. It's something I talk about a lot, something I think about a lot, because I have terminal illness, as you all know. So call in with that. If you were in the chat and you have some ideas about that, we'll have a good conversation. Let's keep taking calls. What do you think, Forrest?
I'm into it.
John, he, him in Ukraine, atheist. Hey, John, you're on the line with Dave and Forrest.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have several problems with science. Your guy told me to bring the strongest one.
Okay.
And so I will do this. First, I want to establish what I mean by scientific method, so we know that we are on the same page. Generally speaking, it's make an observation, form a hypothesis, test it, analyze the results, and then repeat if necessary. Do we agree that this is generally a scientific method?
Yeah, that's a hypothesis-driven scientific method, long and short.
You're talking to a scientist, so you called the right place.
Okay. So when I try this in reality, the problem I run into is that some tests are too dangerous to conduct in reality. And there is nothing in the scientific methodology that addresses this issue, because we clearly use some safety considerations that are outside of this method to decide whether to pursue or to abandon certain lines of research. So for example, cloning. We collectively decided that cloning is unethical. But why? There is nothing in the methodology that says this. It seems like we formed this opinion on a preconceived notion, and that we could theoretically use the same line of reasoning as long as there is some likelihood of the outcome. We can use it to shut down any research whatsoever. And the degree to which it's done seems to be arbitrary, or at the very least, it lies outside of the scientific method. And so that's my first problem. Maybe it's the only one I will use, but for now, that's it.
So my issue with what you're saying is that we didn't just make an arbitrary random decision that cloning is unethical. We're talking about human cloning when we talk about this, because we've cloned animals. Like that's fine.
Right.
And we clone cells all the time. We're talking about cloning an entire human being. And the reason why that's unethical is because that would turn literally entire person, a whole human being's entire life, into a science experiment. And that's not right. Like you can't make that decision for this person.
That's not right.
Well, that's the thing is it hinges on an understanding of human rights and dignity. And so like I have the rights as a person to decide what my life is going to be about, more or less. I can decide whether or not I want to participate in the science experiment. I have to give informed consent to be tested, to be studied, to be to be a part, aside from government surveillance, to be a part of this system that is collecting data on who I am as a person, and then probably to be dissected later on. So what we're saying here is that if you clone a human, you are now bringing someone into the world, a baby that will hopefully become an adult, who knows, that has no informed consent about this. They don't know what they're getting into. They haven't agreed to it. Their entire life is part of this, and the only way out of it is death. Like, that's, if I were to tell you right now, hey, by the way, everything that's ever happened to you in your entire life has been a system set up by someone just to monitor what your reactions would be. And now the experiment's over and it's time for you to die. And I'm going to cut your brain up and see what it looks like inside. Wouldn't be pleasant, would it? So for us to do that to a human being is unethical. So it's not just an arbitrary, I think we shouldn't do this. It's thinking about actual human rights and dignity and realizing that we are talking about a human life here. And it's not fair to bring this person into the world just to be experimented on, especially considering the fact that we might get it wrong. And with this person's life will be short and full of suffering. It's not fair. It's not right. So it's not just a political arbitrary line. It's thinking about humans and what it means to be a human and making a humanitarian decision.
But still, it seems like, for example, a religious person would make the same kind of ethical argument about, for example, trans research or something. They would say that it goes against the God. And my point is, this argumentation of human rights being first still lies outside of the scientific method. So ultimately,
it does not.
We use.
It does not.
Explain.
So what's the difference between me saying human rights and dignity, therefore we cannot experiment on this person, and a religious person saying, my God says there's only men and women, therefore we can't have trans people or do trans healthcare? The difference is one of those is grounded in observable reality and the other is not. We can test and measure human well-being, right? Whether or not the fact that if, I can say that apples are good for you and I can say that rat poison is bad for you. You may be able to eat enough apples to get sick and die, and one or two chemicals within an apple might be poisonous in strong concentrations. You may be able to eat small doses of rat poison and build up a tolerance to it. And we do use toxins and toxins from nature to create medicine, like snake venom and spider venom. We do that to make medicine all the time. And yet, I'm still able to say objectively, apples are good, rat poison is bad. The science of human health and nutrition remains stable. So because I can test and understand human health and well-being, physical and mental health and well-being, and I can qualify and quantify, this is making this person worse off, that is making this person better off, I can say this kind of experimentation is causing undue suffering to a human being, therefore we're not going to do it. And I can have a scientific reasoning behind that. And that's completely different than saying, I read in a dusty old holy book somewhere that boys should like girls, therefore I'm not going to allow anyone to test, do these things for trans people. Especially with that specific thing you brought up, considering the fact that every major medical association supports gender affirming care because the science of human health shows that that is the best possible thing to help those people mentally and physically. It improves their well-being. So science is on the side of trans people, not religion. So we don't give a fuck what religion says because that's not objective reality. We rely on the science. The scientific method still plays into this decision.
All right. What about if there is let's say, a decision where there needs to be some experimentation done on humans, because let's say there is a dangerous virus or something, and we need to speed up the research. And yes, a small number of people, the research subjects, would suffer, but overall, we will most likely, we assert based on previous data, that most likely we will save more lives based on models, let's say epidemiological models, and based on the number of people, etc., etc. In this case, would you be able to make a moral decision? Like, what would be an ethical thing to do?
Because then we rely, rely again on informed consent. Those test subjects need to know exactly what they're getting into, exactly what it's going to do to them, and they need to be able to consciously, fully understand what they're doing and agree to it. Then you're free to do a bunch of shit. And still, the best thing to do would be biopsies, samples, taking pieces from those people and testing those so that the people don't have to experience the pain. Like, there are ways around this. This is how we test disease. This is how epidemiology works. This is how virology works. This is how we study these things. We don't have to say, all right, we're going to take this group of people and get them real sick and see what happens. We've done that. It was called the Tuskegee experiments. It was fucking evil. That's not the way we should be doing things. There's a million examples of us doing that, and it always ends in horror. There are ways for us to do these things ethically while maintaining, again, can't stress it enough, human rights and human dignity.
All right. And my final point then would be, what if it's completely impersonal? It's not related to humans. Let's say there is a large hadron collider or something, and there is a possibility of a black hole emerging. For example, I'm using this old trope. But the point is, let's say there is an experiment that could somehow, completely unbeknownst to us, using a law of physics that we are not yet aware of, it could just completely end all existence instantly on Earth, or maybe in a large proximity radius. So how do we approach this? Because we don't know what we don't know, and there is nothing in the method that says it. And it seems like the best bet is to be conservative and just not pursue any research whatsoever in physics. Or maybe do it, but once again, it lies outside of the scientific method, the way we decided, because we don't have enough information.
We have to be able to quantify and explain whenever you're applying for a grant or you're trying to get approval to do research at a research institution. If you're self-funded billionaire doing whatever research, that's a different story. We can get to that later. But when you're applying for grants, when you're applying to do research at a research institution, when you're explaining what you're going to do and it's got some dangerous element to it, you have to explain that. You have to disclose it and you have to justify it. And then the people who are deciding what goes forward have to make a group decision on whether it's worth it. And there's a lot of things that don't get approved for that reason. If you're testing on animals, or especially humans as well, you have to explain what you're doing. And if there's going to be suffering, is it in the most humanitarian way possible? If there's going to be danger, is it in the most safe way possible? Like, you have to disclose all of that. You have to think about it. Like, this is part of experimental design. You have to make sure you're doing things in the safest and most responsible way possible. But that's just being a good person. That's making sure that you're not being a crazy freaking axe wielder going off and chopping people's legs off to see what's inside. You have to have a way of doing things that's actually like methodological and ethical. So if you're talking about something like the Large Hadron Collider, which I know you're making a reference to the conspiracy theory, I know that you know that it can't actually make a black hole. But like, if you have something like that supposedly could kill us all, we have to be able to calculate the risk of that and talk about why that's probably not going to be a thing. When we did experiments on nuclear weapons back in the 1900s, we didn't just go out into the middle of a big city and set off a bomb to see how much it blew up and how many buildings were destroyed. We took it way the hell out into the middle of the desert where there was no humans around to be hurt by it. And we tested things out there. We did very small scale experiments in very controlled settings within labs to make sure that if there was a bad situation, it was contained and people still got hurt. But it was a lot less than what it could have been if we were just doing it unethically and seeing what happens if I put plutonium in this today. Like, you have to take precautions of these things and leave these things to experts who know what they're doing. Like this isn't abandoning the scientific method for some arbitrary moral code. This is just being a responsible adult. That's all it is.
Good questions. I'm thinking as you to hear you talk, to answer John's question, I'm thinking that this whole human experiment that religion says God did, like testing Job and that whole thing there, just to see, just rolling the dice with Job to see how he does, and this playing this game with Satan. God's whole experiment, he didn't ask us about any of that. He just put us here, and we're supposed to just submit to that. So the ethics of that are questionable. But John, we're gonna let you go. It's a good questions, and I appreciated you asking those and listening to Forrest.
Thank you for having me.
It's good stuff.
Thank you.
Take care, man.
Thanks
so much for calling
Goodbye.
in. It's one more reason why a lot of scientists are anti-religious, because you hear shit like that and you're like, this is terrible experimental design. This guy needs to go back and take Dr. Lou's class at NSU and learn about how to do this thing properly.
Yeah, no shit.
Dr. Lou taught experimental design at NSU, where I got my undergrad degrees. That wasn't just a random thing I said. I don't know why I expected anybody to know what I was talking about. That's so stupid.
That's all right. Let's talk to Anthony. Him in Arizona has a question about the afterlife or comment. Anthony, you're on the line with Dave and Forrest.
Hey.
What's on your mind?
I just wanted to talk to you. I'm an atheist, a recently recovered atheist.
Congratulations.
I used to be Catholic, and then I was raised Catholic, and then married my high school sweetheart, and I was LDS for about 16 years, and then I kicked out of that, and now I'm atheist. Okay.
Nice.
So recently my dad died, right? And I went up there. He was living in Vegas. Went up there and held his hand for a week as he passed away. And so now, that I'm out of sight of faith, I still want to cling to this afterlife idea, and it's kind of like a clinging to God. You know what I mean? And it even gets me kind of teared up, even if I think about it. Like it's cast off, but I'm sad about it.
Yeah,
it's strange to me.
Well, first of all, I'm really sorry about your dad. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, no, he was 81. I mean, he was old. He lived a full life.
Yeah.
And it was terrible at the end, the way he got sick. But yeah, thank you. So, I mean, my dad was a very prolific man. Okay, he had several families. Me and my brother used to say that he had a franchise family every time. So he had 9 kids altogether, 3 different wives. Anyway. Very, Catholic. His name was Moses.
Oh boy.
Anyway, his widow is barely a year older than I am. Very Catholic. I mean, and it was weird that week I spent down there as he died. He was in a hospital and holding his hand. He was conscious the first 3 days. The last wasn't. Anyway, just all. And I remember, because I went to Catholic school, all the stuff, the prayers and shit, right? And then now watching it from the outside looking in, it just seems like watching a episode of Gilligan's Island, when they happen upon natives and they're watching them do weird dances to their whatever myths that they're after. It's like watching that. But at the same time, I cling to this idea of this bearded guy, I kind of want, right? Even it's strange to me. Like sometimes if when I'm alone, I'll go, God, please don't let that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I do that?
Yeah, habit.
Well, a lot of that's just habit and you're essentially talking to yourself, but you attribute it, you assign a God figure to it or another deity, another figure to it. Yeah, you're basically doing self-talk.
Yeah, I was going to say I've been an atheist for a very long time, but like I still, I remember several times in my life, even as an atheist, catching myself if something hilariously ironic or just something really shitty happens to me, kind of like, I bet you think that's really funny. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just being kind of flippant. And then also like, my dad told me my whole life, he would always be like, when I die, you can look up there and see that cloud right there. I'm going to be right. If you look really hard, you'll see me waving over the corner of it. I'll be right there. And he would say this to me as a kid. And still to this day, I don't believe that at all, but I still kind of have this happy feeling of thinking about like, yeah, I did this cool thing. I bet he would. Oh, no, he didn't. Never mind. And just like for that split second in my head, you know what I mean? Same reason why I want to call him every now and then. I still remember his cell phone number. He's been dead for 10 years. And I still every now and then I'm like, I should call that guy and tell him what's going on. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I can't do it. So like it's habit, and it's wishful thinking, and it's a little bit of grief, and it's just a bunch of beautiful things going on in your brain that cause a funny little side effect like that.
It's very normal to feel what you're feeling, Anthony. It's not anything odd that you're dealing with. The idea of an afterlife, the idea of a soul that carries on after this life, is a lot of wishful thinking, I think, for the most part, and it's a desire to reconnect with people we've lost. It sucks to lose people. It sucks to deal with the finality of death. This is the end. When that person quits breathing and dies, that's it. And it's hard to accept that for a lot of folks, and I understand it. It's something I think about a lot, and I talk about a lot with Dying Out Loud and the people that I connect with who are about to lose people or have lost people like you just have. And I don't want to take these ideas away from people. I was just with my mom and her 90th birthday, and she's all about, when she dies, being reunited with my dad in heaven and living out eternity together. Doing what? I can't imagine. I don't think anyone thinks that through when they think about it. I mean, that doesn't make any sense on any rational level. And yet we've bought into the idea that we're going to spend eternity in heaven, whatever that is and wherever that is. And then my brother was there, and he lost his daughter years ago to an accident, and he's convinced that they'll be together again in heaven. The last thing I want to do is go in there and try to blow that notion up and try to take that hope away from them. There's nothing to gain from that. And so I have no motivation to do that. If they ask me, I'll be honest and tell them that I don't. The idea of an afterlife makes no sense on any rational level. It doesn't. I can't get my head around it. I can't see the reason for it. And again, I've said this many times. When we try to attribute an afterlife to the end of this one and pretend that life goes on forever, we then diminish the value of this life. And those 80 years that your dad had are much less valuable now, because 80 years compared to 500,000, which is just the first morning in heaven, means very little. Right? So I would rather help people focus on the value of the time we have here and make the most of that, rather than hanging on to the idea that we're going to live forever. Yeah, I see more value in that line of thinking.
Yeah. And the strange thing is too, my mom and dad were divorced when I was 6, and so my dad, I'm 56. My dad was 81. He was a baby boomer. I'm whatever, Generation X, I guess. Anyway, many boomer dads are kind of a mystery to us, right? They were positive, they were benign, but a mystery. And so that week that I spent, and I went back up there to help his widow arrange the funeral and stuff. And that week that I spent with her, she's Brazilian, very Catholic, and that whole, I got to learn about my dad in a different way, right? But I think that's the other thing that we cling to, is that like in an edible way we're clinging to our father, because we see our own mortality in him. Like, I mean, it was really straight. I mean, when he died, I was holding his hand, and he just looked off. His eyes were kept open, right? And it was quite poignant,
Mm-hmm. Well, think though.
There's another
how...
twist to this whole. There's another
Go
twist
ahead.
is years ago, my older brother died of AIDS years ago during the AIDS whole thing, and that really fucked up our family in different ways, right? My mom and dad were already divorced. I was in the Navy. My brother was an adult, but anyway, so it's always in my family. There's always been this mythology around the dead ones, like that their ghosts are doing things and so on. And so I'm wondering how that's gonna, track to my dad now that he's gone.
Well, think about how when you were talking about the week you had with your dad holding his hand and learning some things about him, think about how less poignant or valuable that time would have been if you were just convinced that it was not a big deal. You were going to see him when you died anyway, so you'd have all that time together in heaven to talk about all these things. And that's what I think, again, the harm in religion and these afterlife fairy tales is that they cause us to lose the value and the urgency of spending the time that matters with the people we love and making the most of those moments and not missing what's here and now in the one life we do know we have. But you had a very, very wonderful, valuable time with your dad that if you'd have been thinking about his life and death differently, you might not have paid that much attention to.
Yeah, you're making me.
I'm sorry. But you see what I mean? I mean, you see how powerful that time is, how wonderful we can make it if we recognize what's real and not get caught up in what we wish was real. But you did that, man. You did that. You took that time and you made it count. And that's the bigger thing here, Anthony.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for calling. I just wanted to say also, big fan of you guys. Big fan of Forrest and Gutsick Gibbon. Just had to do that shout out for them. Big fan. So,
thank you so much for watching, man.
Well, we appreciate you calling, and it's a good question you raised, man. It's something so many people deal with, this question of what happens after we die and the afterlife and all the stories that we tell each other about heaven and hell and eternity, and people everywhere wrestle with this, Anthony. You're not alone. But you did the right thing. You did the good thing. You were there for your dad, and you made it count. And that's what I hope you can take away from all of this.
All right, I'll try call again another time when I don't cry so much.
Don't worry about it, man. Those feelings that's your heart. That's your heart being real, and that's you being real, and we appreciate it so much. And thank you for calling, buddy. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy. You hang in there, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Yeah, I think that's such a poignant thing to say, because like that's, the last few moments that I got with my dad, the last few moments that I got with my grandma, like those are invaluable. And like the pain that I feel from that is the other side of the love that I felt for them my whole life. You know what I mean? That's the consequence. That's the price.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to pay it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
And it fucking sucks. But like, thank goodness we have those tools to. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Thank goodness we have the tools and the perspective to enjoy those moments and to cherish them. I have a friend who was actually, her dad is very, very religious, and she actually asked him once, like, what would you do if you knew for sure that there was no heaven, there was no afterlife? And his immediate response was, I'd be a lot nicer to my family. Exactly. I wouldn't work as much. I'd be home more. And it's like, that's what
we're missing. That's what we're missing with these afterlife fairy tales. We're costing ourselves with the people that matter here and now. Do it now, say it now, spend the time, be present, and don't miss these moments. That's what Anthony did, and I'm really proud of him. I know he's hurting, but he did the right thing, and he gained a lot in those last days that he might not have gained if he'd have been thinking, "Hey, it's not that big a deal. We got eternity, man. We'll hang out forever."
I'll see you in the theme park next week. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't think that way. It's just not. Just deal with the here and now. Deal with the here and now. Anyway,
it's so much more painful, but it's so much more worth it.
Yes, it is, and that pain is the part of the life. The pain is the part of life. You can't if you seek to avoid pain, you're not going to be real with people. You're not going to truly love people. You're not going to truly get the most out of life, because life is not the avoidance of pain. And if you're going to live life with people and be involved in relationships, you're going to experience pain, because that's the cost of loving.
Yeah. That's why people ask me all the time whenever I start a show, I often say that I've never had a bad day. I've had plenty of shit, terrible, horrible, painful days. I've had plenty of days where I couldn't get off the floor of the shower in the morning, where I had to force myself to brush my teeth. I just couldn't find the will to do it. I've had plenty of days like that. But how wonderful that my life is so full and so rich and so happy that those times are recognizable. If that was all the time, if that was every single day forever, I wouldn't even notice it as being painful. So even that, what a wonderful day that I got to experience something so painful so I could enjoy the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you, Anthony, for calling in and being real. That's what this show's about, folks.
We need that.
Let's talk to Gina, she, her in Ohio. Gina, you're on with Forrest and Dave on the line.
Hi, how are you today?
Good. What's on your mind?
Gina.
First of all, David, I just want to tell you I have so much admiration for you. You're an inspiration. And I just think that, you're going through so much. You make shit come together for me. And Forrest, you're just feisty, dude. That's all I got to say about you. I just love you. You're just a feisty little thing. And I just love when you go intellectual. I love when you go intellectual on people. You just blow them away. I've been watching you guys for a minute now. Oh, please. It's just the truth. I just spew the truth. I'm an atheist. Just pretty much came out as an atheist. I mean, I was indoctrinated as a Catholic since I was a kid. And I just finally have come out being able to profess without reservation, just telling people, yeah, I'm an atheist. So what's up with that? And they don't have much to say about that. They just look at me sort of bewildered. But I still, though, have this tendency to believe in things that are is it okay? I believe in spirits. I believe our energy. I don't believe in a soul. Listen, I've listened to Shannon Q. Trust and believe. I know the knowledge of a soul. Okay, so I got that one. But I do believe in I don't know. Can we have an energy? I'm moving out of the other room.
So I guess the question.
Have an energy that you get it.
So I get where you're coming from, because I hear this from time to time. I guess my biggest question would be, what does that mean? Because for sure there is such a thing as energy, and first law of thermodynamics is that energy doesn't get created or destroyed, it just changes forms. So mechanical energy turns into thermal energy, whatever, it's still energy, it's still there. And so yes, there is chemical energy that's making our bodies work right now. Yes, there is intrinsic energy that's making our matter, because E equals MC squared. All these things are real, but none of those are the same thing as consciousness, and none of those are the same thing as my personality, and none of those are the same thing as me. And so, yeah, something, when I'm dead, I want to be buried so that things can eat me the same way that I've eaten many things in my life, because that seems fair. And those things will gain energy from my body. That is not my body living on. That is not my personality living on. That's just biogeochemical cycles. So I don't think that what you're saying constitutes any kind of a spirit or an afterlife or anything like that.
So you don't think that that could be, because I have seen, and I know this sounds really ludicrous, as atheistic as I may be, I do see things like that happen that I feel are, what do I say, showing me things from those that have died. Like, I was with somebody for 23 years. He passed in 2013, and we were very, very close. And we would argue all the time. Oh, there's a God, there's a... Okay, needless to say, you know, we had our differences, but we loved each other. And there's many, many times that I have, and I mean, granted, I do get high every now and then. I smoke weed, I drink. That's not the problem. But I've seen it like with outside of that realm. And it's sort of like, I just think that, can that possibly be? I'm not saying it's with a godly being, or I'm not even saying it's in a religious text. I'm just saying, like, could that just be there?
A spirit or a ghost?
I mean? Could that just be there?
Yeah, you're saying like a spirit or a ghost or something that has a
Not
form.
necessarily a ghost. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, I've talked to people who feel like they've seen spirits or seen apparitions or ghosts or whatever that have some kind of a form or consistency that's beyond just energy, like we were talking before. I don't tend to think that that's a legitimate thing. I don't see how, again, that doesn't make sense to me, like in the same way that an afterlife makes sense. But I could be proven wrong. Forrest, you are smarter than me. What do you think?
I would say that,
but you understand what I mean?
You talk about like,
I'm totally
you're talking about like you had these experiences that you know seem to confirm to you that there's something spooky going on, that you know somebody talked to you from beyond the grave or whatever like these. And like forgive me if I'm misunderstanding, but it sounds like you're saying like you had something happen that seemed to indicate that would, the only way that could have happened was if there was some sort of connection to the afterlife with that person. And like, here's a true fact. My Blizzard account that I play Hearthstone on, and my Xbox Live account when I was a teenager that I played Halo on. Both of them, when you make these public accounts, you have a million people with the same kind of usernames and whatnot, and it'll oftentimes make a little random number generation at the end of your put. I think both of those accounts at different times in my life, the random number that it generated happened to be my house number from the house that I grew up in when I was a kid. So what's more likely, right? Is it more likely that these organizations were like secretly monitoring my life and found this number and associated it with me and all these, or am I picking those two random events out of every other bazillion accounts I've ever made and different things I've ever done that have also generated random numbers that I don't ever think about? Those two just happen to be coincidental and it felt spooky, right? So like, how many times have you had an experience of somebody else contacting you beyond the grave you didn't notice? Or are there just weird shit that happens?
Wait, listen. I've had that happen. And very easily I could have associated it with the same thing. That little.
So this is just what we call confirmation bias. You're noticing something that makes sense in your head. I'm just saying you're noticing. It sounds like you've noticed some stuff that makes sense in your head, but you're ignoring when it doesn't. Which everybody does. There's no shame in that.
No. Like the stuff that does happen like that, and it has. I ignore that because I think coincidences are coincidences.
What do you think it is when you've had these experiences? Gina, let me ask you, when you say about interaction, what do you think that is?
See, I don't know. That's where I'm coming from. Like, I accept coincidences. I accept the plausibility that, this happened, and if you want to turn around and correlate the two of them, you could. But I don't, because I see it as like, that's stupid. It is just what it is. But there's certain things that have happened to me that, like my Noonie, when he died in 2013. And there have been times, more than once, certain things that just happened in my home. Like, and I'm not saying that makes me believe in that does not, and I do not think of anything above and beyond the spiritual. I do not think like that. I'm just thinking, like, I just wonder, could that energy be floating around just like protecting us to a certain extent? Do you know what I mean?
But
could it be?
We would have to. We don't have any evidence of such a thing. We don't have any evidence of such a thing. We don't have any evidence of the possibility of such a thing. And could something happen? You could always answer yes to that question, no matter what you're talking about. But like, it doesn't really, it's not you. When Dave asked you, what do you think these things are? Your first answer was, I don't know. And I think that's where you should leave it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can explore it.
Then I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. But as far as like other things, you're saying like, well, what about our energy and all these other things? You're very quickly tripping over the threshold into kind of like woo-woo, nonsense science, where it's like, well, strictly speaking, because there's energy, therefore I can say that it's this weird thing. And trust me, no shame here. I did the same thing when I was a kid. I used to call myself, I used to have this weird quasi half-assed spiritual mystical belief of like, well, energy is eternal and the whole universe is connected. Yeah. And so like I used to have the same kind of thoughts. And then I realized that when I apply actual scientific principles about like actual thermodynamics to that, kind of doesn't make sense. And I can stretch it and I can make it make sense in my own weird little way, but I wouldn't do that at any other time. So I really shouldn't do it now either. And those beliefs evaporated overnight, and I feel like I'm better off for it, because just as fast as I stopped believing in those things, I stopped noticing those little weird coincidences as well that confirmed my bias, because that's how confirmation bias works.
On the same token, if I can express this, as much as I have come to the conclusion, like, and have came out completely atheist, and thank you, Atheist Experience and Matt Dillahunty and Forrest Valkai and Dave and all you guys, you've made me very confident in me being able to say that I'm an atheist, because I had a problem saying it, even though I felt it. I can understand all that, and because that's the way I've been from pretty much my whole life. And I was raised a Catholic. Listen, the only reason I went to church was to listen to the folk songs. That was it. It certainly wasn't the priest telling me anything that was going to make me change my opinion. So that said, I'm pretty much cut and dry, and I'm pretty much analytical when it comes to a lot of stuff. But there's just some things that I sometimes see, and and it's not with everybody, but it's just certain things that I see that happen with me that trust and believe. Maybe I won't know till I die. Maybe that'll be it.
Let me jump in, Gina.
Go ahead, Dave.
The example you've given with this person that you were close to for a long time who's passed, and you feel certain energies from them, it's to Forrest's point, we can kind of confirmation bias ourselves into wanting something to be there and wanting me to feel something or to see something or to hear something. And the example you gave was that they would be protecting us. That's what you would like to be true. That would make you feel better. That would be a comforting reality if you could make it be so. And so if you hear something or feel something that's unexplained or different, then your mind can quickly go to that place of, maybe that's what that is. I would like that to be what that is. So I'm going to maybe believe that that's what that is. I'm not going to state with certainty that that's what that is, but I'm going to hold on to the hope that that's what that is. Now, is that a harmful thing? Not really. You're not dogmatic about it. You're not letting it inform decisions in your life, I hope. But I think that the realistic way to deal with that is to accept that there's no evidence for such a thing. It doesn't make sense. And by your own admission, you're rational and skeptical in every other area of your life, except these kinds of things that you want to be true because they're comforting. And so maybe just...
Could I make a confession?
Sure.
I do the Ouija board too.
Okay. Well, you're not completely skeptical then, are you?
No, I really truly am skeptical. I truly do not believe that there's a big daddy in the sky saying this is what it is. I truly believe in the scientific process of the earth and the things that analytical all day long. But I do the Ouija board, and then sometimes I just think, like, before he died, him and I would have these conversations, and he always says, you know, if there's something out there, I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you, Gina, and I'm going to let you know. Well, actually, the last time I did the Ouija
Gina,
board,
if you're a very skeptical person, have you done any looking into idiomotor responses?
What does that mean? Explain to me.
Idiomotor is motion that you do without thinking about it or perceiving that you're doing it. It's why dowsing rod works. When you're going out and you have two little sticks and it wiggles over water, it's because you're actually moving the sticks with your hands. You just don't think that you're doing it. You're making tiny little muscle motions that do it when you think you should. And that's why when you actually put a cup of water under a bunch of covers and ask somebody where's the cup of water, they can't actually do it properly. So with the Ouija board, you can look up idiomotor Ouija board. Just type those words. It spells like the word idiot, which means brainless, but it's the same thing. IDIOMOTOR. Idiomotor Ouija board. You're moving the puck with your hands, even if you don't think that you're doing it. Even if you feel like it's actually being moved for you, it's not. It's something that's under your subconscious control of very small muscle tics that's causing that motion and giving you the result that you expect to get, even if it's not actually happening. Same thing with people who do pendulums. People who, if the pendulum swings this way, it means no, and this way it means yes. The pendulum swinger people, the exact same thing. They move their hand very slightly based on what they want the result to be or expect the result to be. It's an idiomotor response. This is well documented.
And I understand that. And I've tried to do it I will not do it by myself because I don't want that idiomotor response, because I feel like being by yourself, yes, I could very easily move that and say, bada bing, bada bang, bada boom.
And when you have more people around all contributing to it, it makes it a lot stronger. When you have more people around it all contributing to it, they all are contributing in the same way. And so you feel even less in control. And so it happens even more. You can actually do a couple of demonstrations.
What you're saying to me is, it could be
hang on. Because hang on, Gina, because Gina, this is like the 40th time this has happened, and I haven't cut in so far. You have to let the hosts finish. I'm saying it very politely here.
I apologize.
Let them finish their sentences before you. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah. You can actually do some demonstrations with this if you'd like to play with it. The whole light as a feather, stiff as a board thing is great. You get a bunch of people on the same vibe, all doing the same thing, all thinking the same thing, and all of a sudden something very miraculous seems to happen. You're able to lift this person with your fingers. It's not magic. It's just everybody's brainwaves, for lack of a better word, getting into the same kind of thing, not actual brainwaves. You can also do, if you want to do the opposite of this and see this go awry and see how badly this can go, get a yardstick or another very light, very long object like that, like a tube or a stick or something like that. Get a bunch of friends and have everybody touch. Here, can you see the screen, Gina? Are you looking at the screen right now?
No, I'm not actually, because I didn't want to interfere with all that.
I appreciate you doing that, actually. Well, for anybody else watching at home, and you can watch this afterwards, take a yardstick or something and have, hold it in place and have a bunch of people. The more people, the better. Just put one finger on the bottom of it so that everybody is just supporting the weight of this thing on the bottom. And then let go. And the goal of the game is to try to get it to the ground. All you can do is touch the bottom like this. It's all resting there. And everybody has to bring it down to the ground. And immediately, this thing is going to be in the air. It's going to be all over the place. It's like the hardest game to play because everybody's trying to control little itty bitty things with this all at once, and it goes haywire immediately. And it's like a demonstration of this same kind of response you get with a Ouija board happening backwards. Instead of everybody controlling it in one easy way, everybody's mind isn't on the same wavelength, and so shit goes wrong. So yeah, that's what you're experiencing, Gina. This is something that we have a million tests about, and you can look it up. There's a well-documented effect, and there's a reason why those things are popular, because it's really good at tricking people. It's just a game. It's a game for a reason.
Yeah, I think by and large, Gina.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Gina.
No, you go ahead, Dave.
No, I'll let you talk and then I'll finish and we'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
All right, thanks. I want to say thank you. Number one, you guys have sort of clarified a whole lot of shit for me. But number two, I want to say, you know what? If it hadn't been for Jimmy Snow and Matt Dill and all you guys, I wouldn't be so confident in being able to, number one, call you, let alone question what I'm believing or not believing or finding as. And I just appreciate you guys a lot. You have no idea.
Well, I sincerely appreciate you asking these questions and being open to answers, because that's the biggest thing.
You really are. The openness that you exhibit is really refreshing, Gina. And these are good topics for discussion and good questions. I think my summation will just be that the more we can base our lives on logic and reason and sound evidence, the better we're going to be in all spheres of life, in what we believe to be true or what we wish to be true or what we think is true. Just apply skepticism, reason, and logic and look for sound evidence. And we're going to, I think, be better off on the whole.
I think you're on the right path, Gina.
Yep.
Thank
Good
you.
stuff,
and
Gina.
Dave, I want to tell you one thing. I appreciate the way that you are, because you've made me a lot more comfortable with the way things are going to be. If you understand what I'm saying, I appreciate you.
I do, and I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, that's one of my goals with all that I'm doing is to help people be more comfortable with their mortality and to recognize that we're all going to die, that death is nothing more than the natural result of living, and make your peace with that, and then get about living. Get about living. Yep. As my shirt says.
And that's exactly what I was talking about.
Carpe the fucking deal.
Hey, and Jimmy, go fuck yourself. I love you. Bye.
Thank you,
See you later, Gina.
Bye. Bye.
Oh, that's a great way to transition into our chats, our super chats.
Yeah, a great way to end the show.
Again,
great.
I remind you, any super chat of $5 or more, we'll read it on the air here, starting now.
Hey, I'm over there now.
You go first.
All right, we have $4.99 from Antondre Sucks. I hope things get better for you. Stop sucking so hard, or keep it. Depending, I'm not telling you how to live your life, bro.
Thank you, Antondre. I like saying that, Antondre. I like that.
I love that.
As a queer man, I would like to point out that the last thing we need is some straight guy running around telling other people not to suck so hard. You know, Forrest, maybe keep that shit to yourself.
Hey,
$4.99. $4.99 has from Antondre Sucks. Northwest Arkansas has Fayetteville. Not much of an oasis, but it is where I discovered I was progressive, thanks to students at U of A and teachers like you, Forrest.
Awesome.
One good thing came out of Northwest Arkansas, and that's me. I'm from Rogers, Arkansas, so I'll just say it's a good place to be from.
I'm pretty sure the University of Arkansas there in Fayetteville is where Erica studies as well.
Springdale. She's in Springdale, but yeah, she studies at U of A.
But Dave, had you been born somewhere else, would you have dedicated so much of your life to being a pastor and all that stuff? I'm just saying.
Yeah, a fair point.
I'm just going to antagonize all night.
Of course you are. That's what
we're almost done.
$4.99 from Joe Pellerito. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you.
Joe's a good friend.
I don't know how to.
That's awesome.
I don't know how to antagonize this time. Perhaps that it's probably pronounced Pearito, right?
Pearito.
Pearito.
Senor Pearito.
I was going to try to roll the R, but I have food in my mouth.
Pearito. $4.99 from Bryn Poo KC. This is going to be a great show. Thanks to all. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy.
And it already was a great show. Her prediction came true. I'm assuming. I don't know. The profile picture here, it tells me she, her pronouns from this. I don't know. $19.99 from Merit. Oh God, Ingebretson.
Got it. You got
hi,
it.
Forrest. I love it. Eating gelato with your top fan, Bevan. That's awesome. I say hi to Bevan for me. She's freaking awesome too. She's lovely.
Marit is a good friend. She's actually visiting us here this week from California. And her and Bevan are out eating gelato. Where's mine? God damn it.
Where's mine? Ship one to Tulsa, yo. I'm incredibly snackish right now. That sounds awesome.
Thanks,
well, hello
Marit.
to you and hello to Bevan. So good to hear from both of you.
$19.99 from our good friend Greg Markowski. Happy birthday, young man. Are you ever going to have a bad guest week after week? The best people to talk to. We hope not. We think we're going to have good guests every week. A lot of that's on Jimmy. So, Jimmy, let's keep up the good. Let's keep it up.
Unfortunately, sometimes Jimmy is on.
I was going to say, he sent this early in the show, and now I have disappointed everyone for an hour and a half. So, like,
yes, that's what the chat reflects. That you're a disappointment. You're not a fan favorite at all.
No.
There are over 666 people watching, which means if everybody hits like right now, we could hit 666 likes, but it'll take all of you. And you's like, well, my vote won't matter. It does matter. And if you don't,
it does.
I'll find you.
Side note, shit. I saw last week I checked on my audiobook sales, my memoir, Childish Things. And I when I clicked on it, it was 666 audiobooks. So that was a marker. I was pleased.
So nobody buy any more. Don't fuck it up.
No, don't do that.
Now we got to get to 420,666 is the next goal. Okay. Or 42,069 would be good also.
I was going to say, yeah.
69, 420 wouldn't be bad either.
All the great numbers.
$5 from RPG Debunks. Forrest, since you enjoy factoids, as you know that our current technology with our current technology, it would take 28,000 years to get to the planet Proxima Centauri b. I've heard similar numbers. I would believe you if you said that is a correct estimate. That sounds about right. That's wild.
That's crazy.
You can see in that also. I read too fast. My brain gets ahead of me, and I have a hard time. I have I don't know if I actually have dysgraphia, but I do the same thing when I'm writing. My hand will just shake, and I'm like trying to just do the one letter, and then it's like E, and I'm like, I didn't want to put an E there. And I do the same thing when I'm reading. I just like jump all over the place.
I don't have a hard time believing that. $5 from the Raven 200. What did one monkey say to the other when he got kicked in the balls? Ow, macaque. I'll show myself.
It's macaque. Macaque.
Yeah.
It's a type of monkey.
French pronunciation. Macaque.
Love that. Macaque.
It's a type of monkey that sounds like a type of bird. Like if you'd never been told what kind of animal it was and someone says, have you ever seen a macaque? You'd assume it was a bird, I think.
Did I ever tell you about the time I was working for an animal sanctuary, and we had these cockatoos, and we were doing we're going to do a whole demonstration about like cockatoos and where they come from, and just some science about these birds. And so I went around telling everybody like, hey, we got our big white cockatoos over here. We're going to take our cockatoos out, bounce them around in front of you guys. If you want to come see our big old cockatoos over here, we got these big old cockatoos. Just, oh my God.
How many species can you name, Forrest, that are the only member of their species family? There aren't that many.
What?
Of animal. How many species of animals can you name?
Yeah.
Which are the only member of not just their species, but also their genus and their family?
Oh, shit. Off the top of my head, none. I'm sure I could come up with a few if I sat down and thought about it for a while, but just on the spot.
You'll never forget again, I bet, at least one, because it's my favorite animal that I assume you remember.
What is it?
You don't remember maybe animal? Koalas are the only member of their family.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that. All right.
Yep.
Hey.
Yep. Little taxonomy fun for everybody.
Factoid that, this is great. This is the stuff. Forest Hour.
That's what we're here for.
I find that, especially amongst animals and even further mammals, I find that fascinating that there are any that are the sole members of their family.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. By the way, your favorite animal is not the best animal. I'm sorry to say. Just like your favorite Pokemon is not the best Pokemon.
Do you even know what my favorite Pokemon is?
Didn't you tell me? Oh no, I've confused you with my other with Jesse Jurdak. Jesse Jurdak's favorite Pokemon is Machamp, and he's wrong.
Mine's
What's your
Alakazam.
favorite Pokemon? Okay, well you're still wrong then. I'm sorry. That's
wrong.
fine.
You're just wrong, Jimmy, about everything. Go fuck
Just
yourself.
wrong all around. The best animal is a silky anteater. Have you seen them? They're great. And the best Pokemon is Diglett. Diglett is the best Pokemon. I will die on this hill, and Diglett will bury underneath the hill.
Do you know why I like Alakazam? Is because it makes no fucking sense that anyone could ever capture Alakazam and that Alakazams don't rule the world. Because a fun fact about Alakazam from the original Pokedex is that they all have a 4-digit IQ.
Jesus.
But humans are taming them, right? Like,
right.
Okay.
That's just wrong.
By the way, not too much shade, because Alakazam is freaking cool. Better than dumbass Machamp. But like,
at least all three of us are first gen.
Right?
Yeah.
Dave's over here just like these kids.
I hope they brought gelato.
Dave's listening to us talk, hoping that the ALS will set in harder, faster. Just kill me now, Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna die right here on the air while you guys talk about Pokemon. Characters. Jesus Christ.
I do get. By the way, Dave, I've now gotten, I think, 2 emails about how they don't find it. What was the word one of them used? Cute. How nonchalant I am joking about you dying.
They just got to get over it.
Yeah,
I joke about it more than anybody.
Yeah, I think it's so fucking ridiculous when people tell you you're not allowed to laugh about dark things, where it's literally like, oh, I didn't know that you were in charge of my therapy. I didn't know that you were in charge of how I don't just break down and cry every time I talk to Dave, because I kind of wanna.
Let me just say this. Take your cues from the person who's actually dealing with the issue. If they can laugh about it, if they can joke about it, then it's okay. And don't get all up in arms about it. When people see me getting upset about it, then they can get upset about it. Until they see me upset about it, then chill out.
Don't be offended for somebody. I hate that. One of the first things I ever said to you when I met you in person, Dave, was that we were talking about that, and I said that you were bragging about dying because we're all dying. You're just better at it than the rest of us, and I'm sick of your bragging. Like, come on,
get over it, Dave.
You have to have fun with it.
You always have to win.
Yeah, you always have to be the best. So
I like giving him shit for any sort of like, if he's going to take a week off or something, like, oh, what possible excuse could you have to need to take a week off? Oh, I don't feel good.
I don't feel. I've had
take some ibuprofen.
I've taken more sick days recently than Dave has.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Oh, I wish I could.
$5 from Sheridan Bernasconi. Hey, Cher. Happy birthday, Dave. Thank you. Hi, Forrest. Feel yourself better, Jimmy.
Right.
Word.
Love that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cher.
I'll take that in advisement. Okay, just so you know, this is the beginning of a series of super chats. We love Claire. Claire has been a great. I don't know why Claire looks like she ate the blueberry gum at.
They've
the
all
Wonka
been
factory.
this way.
Okay, then that means I need to fix it. Hang on.
Yeah, they have. There's a tint there.
That's probably something.
I thought it was
a
stylistic decision on your side. I thought it was to match like the coloration of the line logo next to it.
No, I don't know. It has something to do with probably we use this same background on all of them, and so we hue change them all. But I bet you I can fix this quickly. Maybe. Anyway,
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, we'll just let it be purple. That was why I wanted the borders to be green, and then I guess I thought the profile photo, since it's sourced from YouTube, maybe would be spared. I don't know.
It looks better now.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the beginning of a few super chats, so I'm going to try to get through all of them, even though they're a little out of order. Claire, thank you so much for the support. I don't think you're going to get the answers you wanted tonight, but here's several super chats in a row about pig's blood. So go ahead.
Let's do it.
Go.
Am I reading this one? I'm sorry. 99 from Claire. This probably sounds really stupid, but I simply must ask, if blood has sugar in it, how is meat 0 carbs? Is meat really 0 carbs? I can't find any nutrition facts for blood to see the sugar content. So blood sugar, this is so far outside of my area of expertise, so I'm going to do my best here.
Mine too.
Blood sugar would be in the form of, I think, glucose. So that's one thing. Meat wouldn't. So a carb and a sugar are different things. A carb is a chain of sugars. I think that's the biggest thing that you're the disconnect is that, like, you can have a monosaccharide, which is just a simple sugar carbon ring, basic shit. Disaccharide, 2 of them put together. Example. So a monosaccharide would be like glucose. A disaccharide would be like sucrose, is table sugar. And then when you get into more, I don't think
glucose is a monosaccharide. I think glucose is a polysaccharide.
Glucose is I'm 99% sure. I'm gonna double check right now. Glucose mono. I am 99% sure. Yeah, glucose is a monosaccharide. Yeah, it can't be further broken down anymore by hydrolysis, so it's a monosaccharide. Okay.
Glycogen is branches of glucose. That's the polysaccharide.
Yeah. So, but a polysaccharide, remember, poly just means many. So when you have a long chain of sugars, you get a polysaccharide. That's, for example, starch. And this is where you're talking about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are just long sugar molecules, chains of repeating sugars. And so meat being 0 carbs, I'm certain that there are actually carbohydrates in there, but I don't know if what the bioavailability would be. And I'm sure that what they're talking about here is that.
Funny enough, because of my own medical condition and the fact that almost half of my family has diabetes, I do know a little bit on this. And we'll just give also your blood glucose level is not measuring the amount of glucose in your whole body. It's not measuring how much is stored in your liver or your skeleton. No, where is it stored? Not your skeletal muscles. It's not measuring that. It's a trait. It represents when that level goes up, you know that the levels are up overall. So even the amount of sugar in your blood is minimal compared to the amount of. It's not as though if you eat a tablespoon of sugar, you now have a tablespoon of sugar circulating your blood. And so in the same way that Tic Tacs are 0 calories, and yet if you eat a whole bin of them, you'll still get fat. Trust me, they aren't really 0 calories. A lot of things round down. And the amount of sugar in meat would round down to 0.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. Is like your meat surely has some stuff in there. Like there's gonna be something, but meat is mainly just gonna be protein and fat. Remember, there's 4 major macromolecules that make biological materials: carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. So like scrap nucleic acids, that's DNA. You're not counting that in your calorie count. So you're gonna have proteins and lipids, proteins and fats that are gonna make up your meat. The major carbohydrate that's going to be in muscle tissue is going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be glycogen. And that's going to break down before you get a chance to eat it. So like you're before you're doing that. So like it's not actually 0 carbs. It's just damn close to it. And the carbs that are there are not bioavailable in the way that you would be using it in this way. And also I'm not a nutritionist. So like I probably missed something here, and I hope that somebody in the chat will tell me if I do, because it's not my area of expertise. 99% sure about all that, but like,
I'm not weighing in because I don't have.
No, I said it all perfectly correct, and I am the final authority on all things biology.
I know God's not dead, so I know God's not dead. So let's.
There's also going to be less sugar in the cardiac muscles versus the skeletal muscles.
Yeah, different types of muscles are going to have different content. Yeah, because they're literally built differently.
Yeah, and sugar is stored almost entirely in skeletal, as far as your muscles go, not entirely in general.
And my muscles will waste away completely while we talk about this, I think.
Dave will be deliciously lean by the end of this.
It was going to do that either way. Oh my God, has no one given you the news?
Just count. Dave over here, worried about getting in the gym.
I'm trying to get...
You're going to get another nasty email.
I'm trying to get more emails.
$9.99 again from Claire. People are saying you drain the blood from meat after you kill the animal, but it can't all be gone. What's your fascination with blood, Claire? What's going on here? If a dish has a sugary sauce and you serve it with a slotted spoon, you're still eating a lot of sugar.
But imagine that the fork is made of hairs, 4 hairs. How much sugar are you getting when you try to dip that in the? And we're talking like carbon fiber, individual fibers. Size hairs. Yeah.
You do have blood vessels that permeate that, but like a lot of meat is actually dyed a little bit when you get in the store because it would be just gray nastiness without all that. And also the coloration that you see in meat, the red tint to that when you see like a little bit of juice in there, it's not blood, it's water mixed with like myoglobin and things. It's
brine.
Some blood byproducts and some stuff breaking down that's coming out of there. Same reason why
I think most of the juice is also brine now, because a lot of any meat that's made in a factory is often injected with basically salt water. So that's what a lot of the liquid coming off is.
Some flavor and to stabilize it. And so like you know when you get like a deep tissue massage and you piss brown for a day, it's the same as myoglobin. It's these byproducts of blood that get broken down. So there's a lot there, but I don't think that there's, again, it's not as much as usual. But again, please, there's a really fucking cool dude on TikTok. Is there more about pig blood? Someone in chat told me how much blood drains out of a pig, how much blood drains out, says nothing about how many amount that's left. I really appreciate you sending us this much money to ask us these questions.
All of these came in before we already started answering. So I feel like the beginning answer of by the time you're done and what you have left rounds down to 0, but we do things in calories and grams. We don't do it in moles. So if our nutrition, man, can you imagine, Forrest, if the nutrition panel, instead of being in grams and stuff, was in nanomoles and moles?
Oh my God, dude. Yeah. I don't want to freaking think about it. I hated conversions like that because it was like, it's fascinating and it's super cool to think about. Okay, so there's a guy on, it's fascinating, but it's just so much fucking math. It's just not. Go to to TikTok and look up a guy named Rob Lapham, Lapham. He actually has some really, really great content about nutrition, and his major shit is like debunking people who are going out there saying like, oh, well, this has palm oil in it, therefore it gives you cancer and shit like that. And he has a lot of really cool things about, you know, raw milk and enriched flour and weird. He had a whole thing about farm raised salmon that I saw not too long ago, where he's explaining this is the color that's being put into it. It's not like some toxic dye. It's the natural coloration of the things they eat. And so like, yeah, I would recommend looking him up because he would probably have some really, really cool advice. And I bet he'd answer your questions. He's a really nice guy.
All I know is I feel breakfast doesn't have enough stoichiometry. That's what I know.
That is the issue. Thank you, Claire. $10.
Oh, and tell him that I shouted him out. If you go and watch his stuff, go tell him that I sent you.
$10 from Oathkeeper. Thank you, Oathkeeper, for your support.
$10 from Oathkeeper again. Oops, this is my first super chat. To add to the poll, I would like reincarnation. It would help to experience new things that I couldn't fit in this life due to a variety of circumstances with some past men. I get you, man. Yeah.
This also being, I did a second poll after the one we used before, which was, do you wish there was an afterlife? And of the 431 people, 53% said yes. And by the way, I actually said in parentheses, any kind, not isolated to just heaven or something. So here's what I'm going to give the results with my opinion injected into it. 53% said yes, and 46% lied.
Oh, that they don't want an afterlife?
That number is way too high. Again, any kind of afterlife. You can't imagine. Even it doesn't even have to be a permanent afterlife. Like it could be now you've died and now you can go relive any moment you like from your life as long as you like, and then anytime you want you can turn off the light switch.
Let's do that.
I answered yes as well, simply because of like you said, any kind of thing, not just specifically that. Because like if it was an eternal afterlife, probably still not into it. But if it's one where I can fuck around,
I like how delighted I would be if I realize the moment is coming, I feel it draining, I take that last exhale and I close my eyes, and then game over pops up in front of my, like, you know what I mean?
Think about.
And then all the memories come flooding back of the fact that I'm in a video game. I'm just saying. By the way, Dave, if you want to check your Facebook Messenger right now, I just sent you a picture of macaque.
Macaque? I don't want to see your cock.
No. No, I sent you a picture of macaque.
Well, I'm gonna put pictures of silky anteaters in the chat if you're doing that because they're fucking awesome.
Isn't
More people need to know how great they are.
I love your cock, Jimmy.
No. You love macaque, not your cock. Macaque. My caca is su caca. Anyway.
That's a cute little monkey.
Macaques are also, there are multiple types.
Sorry.
I was just saying there's multiple types of macaques. That's not the only type of macaque.
Yeah, that's a cute little monkey. $10 from too young to feel this old. If I could pick any kind of afterlife or special universal magical entity that I've ever been presented with the idea of, I'm choosing the Force and being a Force ghost any day of the week. All right.
That's the best afterlife you can come up with? I'm sorry.
Hey, that is. Don't judge. No, don't judge him.
I am judging.
You get to just
too young to feel this old.
You just go creep behind people all blue and weird and fucking...
Too young to feel this old. You know I appreciate you and your support, but I think I have confidence that you could come up with a better original afterlife than the people who invented Jar Jar Binks.
Think about it and come back to us next week with the super chat and let's revisit this.
Give us more money to talk about your thoughts.
Too young to feel this old is never reluctant to give us more money. That won't be a problem. That's why we love Too Young to Feel This Old. They bought our love.
5 theoretical dollars from Purple Elise. Some people can be confirmed with science. We just need to get there. Unknown events awaiting scientific analysis, just like old age eclipse. Unknowns exist. Yeah, I could vibe with that. It's just don't then also take that and be like, well, then because we don't know these things, probably magic, because like a lot of people do that.
Let's don't make up answers. Let's wait till we have them.
Right, exactly.
$5 again from the Raven 200. I finally got some Spy X family merch. One of my favorite enemies. Speaking of, Jimmy, go become the target of Thorn Princess for your forger.
Thank you, the Raven 200. I have to say, Spy X family sounds like a category on Pornhub, but just saying.
It may be.
It's probably both.
We got $4.99 from Senor Payarito. Happy birthday from Joe and Judy, and in Michigan, Dave. The White Sands are calling us. I don't know what that means, and it sounds like you're going away to the Grey Havens of Valinor. Godspeed to you.
I think the White Sands are just like the Caribbean, but
the
White Shores of Valinor. The White Shores of Valinor. This man is an elf, and he is going to sail into the west.
We had time with Joe and Judy at the beach, and the White Sands are calling them back. Thank you, Joe, Judy.
I find all the non-Caribbean sands to be a more off-white, a more.
No, you haven't been to the Gulf Coast. Then it's bright.
I haven't been to the Gulf Coast. What are you talking about? I used to live in Louisiana on the Gulf Coast.
You weren't there when we were there, which means you've never been there, as far as I know.
That's the white sand. I don't know how you can say that's not white.
And I lived in Florida. I don't know. I'm just saying I've seen whiter beaches is all.
Yeah. Okay. No. Caribbean.
None whiter than Clearwater, but that's a different reason.
Well, you know what? I think that the Caribbean water makes the sand maybe look a different hue, but the white sands of the Gulf Coast are pretty amazing. It's just that the water's not as blue as it would be in the Caribbean.
Also lived in New York, and the sand in New York is definitely browner than the sand in California.
Yeah, you can't call that a beach.
Especially when I got done with it.
Oh, boy.
Do you think the whitest sand is actually in Florida because of all the Republicans?
That was my Clearwater joke. You don't just get to repackage what I just said.
I didn't know what Clearwater was. I apologize.
It's all good.
Is that me or you?
You.
$4.99 from Greg Markowski. No way, Forrest. You're one of the best on the YouTubes. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Everybody make sure to go watch the new Reacteria coming out in the next couple of days. It should be up at the 15th is when it's supposed to be published. Maybe it'll be published early, but it'll be at the very latest by the 15th, which is, I believe, Saturday.
$4.99 from Alex Makic. Just discovered the line. Even more content to enjoy from my favorite people. Well, thank you. Glad to have you with us.
We're pretty cool.
Does Alex Makic like an Alex Macaque?
We need to quit talking about your cock, Jimmy.
Not your cock, my cock.
We just need to stop.
Beautiful macaque.
$10 from Dylan Fuller. Have you heard the hypothesis that the uncanny valley response may also be caused by the dead? It's our brains getting over this person is gone where the person they were is gone, and it makes me uncomfortable. Love y'all nerds. I have not heard that hypothesis, but I have heard and experienced when you're not familiar with dead bodies, you tend to assume that they're going to move or think that they are moving. I've heard that a lot. Like people who are around dead bodies, they think that they're wiggling when they're not, because you can't process the idea of this thing not moving. And I know when I first saw autopsies and stuff as a kid, when I was watching these videos, I was like, why isn't this guy jumping up and saying, stop, this hurts, stop cutting on me and all these things. It took me some time to get through that. And even in cadaver labs, I've dissected a lot of humans and a lot of people, when it's their first or second or third or 15th time in there, we still have to cover the face up because you don't want to see this person's face because it's like a connection that you don't want to have. And it's weird and it feels uncomfortable.
A lot of cadaver labs, because of some stuff that happened, I think in Utah a few years back, will actually either remove or clip back the face to make sure that, because somebody was very traumatized when their aunt ended up being their lab's cadaver.
That's not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to be allowed to happen. They're supposed to trade cadavers around where that doesn't happen, but it can. It sure can. And that could be a bad thing for some people. My dad, when he died, he was riddled with cancer, just chock full of it. And no joke, I would love to have seen what the insides of that dude looked like.
I feel like that would have been weirder it would still be. I also did a bunch of cadaver labs in school, and I feel it would have been very weird to still do somebody, because by the third or fourth one, my brain really internalized, dead is dead. You are furniture when you are dead. It didn't really hit me until then. And so then even being around dead people since then and stuff, who I think the actual cutting somebody open, I had known, my brain goes, I got used to cutting open dead people, but that's
dead friends are different. Right?
Yeah. It's it's something that you interacted with before they were furniture. And I don't mean that literally, just as this is sort of the thought my mind had, but the person you interacted with before they were, and now you're taking them apart would just be fucking, I don't think I could do it personally.
It's super weird, but I just want to try. I want to know so badly. It's crazy.
Now,
that's the curious mind of Forrest Valkai.
So Forrest, let's say you are given the technology to exist, to take your consciousness into a sort of ghost state. Your consciousness removes from your body, but you can actually still manipulate tools. You can use your spiritual hands like physical hands. Would you want to take apart your own cadaver?
100%.
Yeah, for me, 100%. I'm like, that one I
Absolutely.
can do. I'm so in.
I'd be all over it.
I've got some lumps I want to find out exactly what they look like on the inside.
I coughed up something pink about the size of a kiwi fruit the other day. I don't feel anything missing, so I think I'm okay, but I want to know what's going on.
I like to get to the bottom, and I want to see how good a job they did stapling up where my gallbladder used to be, because I suspect they sucked at it. Anyway.
$5. No, that's yours. Sorry.
I don't remember, actually. $5 from Copycatson. Like Hitchens said, I am dying, but so are all of you. This is true.
Yeah.
I will say, when you're sick, the everybody's dying sentiment, I don't care for. I get it from the perspective of Dave, who gets to say that to sort of comfort other people. But to come the other direction and just be like, shut the fuck up. Or the people are like, you could be hit by a bus tomorrow. Right.
Yeah, that's a pro tip Hitch can say it for himself. I can say it, but don't ever say that to someone with a terminal illness or someone who's dying. That's not the way to try to, it tends to minimize it. It tends to, hey dude, we're all dying. No big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't have the clock sitting out on the table in front of you.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing not to do for people in my position. Let us do it if we want if we want to, bring you into it with us, but that's not the thing you say to someone else.
I'm probably extra sensitive to it because my dad always responded to like how much adversity was in the world with the scripture about this life is but a vapor.
Yeah.
And it's literally like, how dare you, a person who's not had that much adversity in your life, tell other people who have that this life is but a vapor. Like, fucking.
By the way, it's not a Forrest Valkai stream without a book recommendation. Hitchens, his last book he ever wrote was Mortality. This is while he was battling cancer, and this was just his documentation of what he was going through, telling the story of this, his thoughts on death and what was happening to him and everything like that. And he died while writing it. The last chapter is just random fragments of like just random thoughts that he was going to continue writing on, just some bits and pieces, random things he wrote down. Very little of it makes sense. Just like clearly just a note that he had made. The very, very last thing that he wrote, and the very last thing from him in this book, is from Alan Lightman's intricate 1993 novel Einstein's Dreams, set in Bern, in 1905. With infinite life comes from an infinite list of relatives. Grandparents never die, nor do great-grandparents, great-aunts, and so on, back through the generations, all alive and offering advice. Sons never escape from the shadows of their fathers, nor do daughters of their mothers. No one ever gets to come into his own. Such is the cost of immortality. No person is whole, no person is free. That's the last thing he ever wrote, was like the benefit of death is freedom. And I love that.
That's a really good quote, but I'm disappointed he didn't end on a joke. Like, and now let me end with the most important thing I learned, and then just have it like hold down on the D key. So it like it just keeps writing the letter D over and over. Yeah. Like he died trying to say the last sentence.
One final thought.
Yeah. Or I have information that will imprison Hillary Clinton, and then just nothing after that. That's the meme about when people die because conspiracy theorists think that everybody who dies was going to expose Hillary Clinton.
It's so good.
Yeah, I just wish he had gone out on a joke. I feel like I warned Forrest, like, hey, by the way, we don't go long on this show, and I'm probably the reason why we're going a little long. So I'll let you read your last ones.
I got a piece. So let's
let's run through this.
1999 from Jamie Gallier. Happy birthday wishes, Dave. Hearts.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that. I got another trip around the sun. $5 from NNY. Yeah, I butchered that. Barbary macaques in Gibraltar are the only wild monkey population and the only other arguably free living primates on the European continent. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Good information. I've learned about macaques tonight.
Yeah. $20 from Joe White. How can you tell if the animal is the only member of the family as opposed to being a member of the next nearest family? It's just taxonomy, just the way we classify them. Families don't exist. We base these things on evolutionary hierarchies and who's related to who. And so just like with species, it's not a real thing. We just kind of put a label on some shit. And so when we notice things are related and we can do tests now, we used to do it just by what they looked like. Now we do it through like genetic testing and building phylogenies. But yeah, that's all it is. It's just where
they don't come with labels.
Right, you can check. We don't have the stamps, but like you check where the branches meet on the family tree. How far back those branches meet this is the genus chunk, and this is the family chunk, and this is the order chunk.
That's a great question.
That's what we're talking about. There's a certain point where it just goes a straight stick.
I will say this one's koalas because the koala subclass is so exclusive that it's hard to imagine a different set of boundaries put on taxonomy, a different way we could have done it that wouldn't have resulted in the same thing. Because there's only like 18 species of marsupials in the world? I genuinely don't know, but I think it's less than 20 of all the marsupials, and the subclass of wait, am I right? Is it the subclass or the order that are marsupials? Is marsupial an order or it's a subclass? What is it? Because I think the order has to do with
class is mammalia. So yes, it would be a subclass.
This is not us getting through these, y'all.
Sorry.
There are 330 species of marsupials. the internet
Okay.
says.
You were close, Jimmy. You were close.
That isn't close. But we'll relitigate it later because I know that in some way that number is way restricted, and it might be that it's 3-toed marsupials or something stupid like that. Anyway, I think it would still happen even with slightly different rules.
It is a subclass, or they like the term infraclass now. But like, yeah, because I was thinking a class is mammalia, and that's where we get the split between placentals, marsupials, and monotremes, and so it would have to be there. It wouldn't be in order. Wouldn't make any sense for it to be in order.
Right.
1999 or 999 from Nuzzy D. Stay awesome. Sorry I missed the show. I am too. Personally, any kind of afterlife would be like working in unpaid overtime. Love that. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Keep making me feel dumb, Forrest. Thank you for your kindness, Dave. Love that. Great summary.
Thank you, Nuzzy. That's a great summary. Yeah. KES? I don't know. What is this?
I think this is our first Kenyan shillings, right?
Damn, really?
Fuck yeah.
Wow.
Fuck yeah, Kenya.
Thank you.
2,500 of them.
2,500 of them, whatever it is.
About $18. I just
Nairobi. Looked. Yeah. Sorry for KES working. Okay, now I read it. I should have read it. From Goodwill Thinking. Thank you. Love listening to you guys doing the art of dialogue. Sorry for KES working Nairobi for some days. But it is real money, unlike the Canadian money that we sometimes get. Yeah.
Love that.
Thank you, Goodwill.
$4.99 from Claire. You said sugar's not a carb, but in nutrition facts, carb count includes sugar. Yeah, because sugars make carbs. And some aren't digestible. I thought that was fiber, no fiber in meat. So not
real quick before you do this, Dave, do you want to just go pee and we could have Forrest do the rest? I know you said you really got to pee.
Well, how many more do we have here?
About 7 after this, and okay. Yeah, it's up to you.
I'll
two sentences on this.
Yeah, I'll hang it. We just kind of need to maybe go a little quicker on them.
Cool.
Yeah, it's all about bioavailability, which is the ability of your body to incorporate and like to break down and metabolize something, and that varies from thing to thing, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. And then when you're talking about fiber being non-digestible, you're specifically talking about like plant fibers like cellulose, which makes lignin, and you have bacteria that do that for you, and so that's all that is. $20 from Ross Settles. Oh, sorry, fuck, I was just going faster. Go for it. It's all you.
$20 from Ross Settles. How can I turn my political brain off and make friends with conservatives, even crappy ones, in my hobby without feeling like a traitor to the cause? That's a good question. I mean, let's say you've got a hobby like your golf buddies and you want to enjoy company with them, but they're conservatives, maybe even Trumpers. How do you turn that off? That's tough sometimes. I think the best we can do, I mean, now if they're really toxic, if they're dangerous, if they believe things that are really bad and are hurting people, I would find new friends. I would find new friends to enjoy that hobby with. I mean, there are some things that are deal breakers, in my opinion. Yep. Now, I don't agree, and so it's not always easy to determine what that line is, but there are some things you just can't ignore. Like if they are anti-trans or something like that is really harmful to a marginalized group of people or is dangerous to our democracy, and they want to spout these things, and they believe them, and they just can't be reasoned with, then it's time to move on to different friends. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Is like I have friends who have different financial ideologies than me, and different ends of the political spectrum in terms of like different ideas of like where we should be doing what with our country and things like that. But if we can't have a conversation about human rights like that. We're not going to have a disagreement on that. I'm sorry. We can have a disagreement about what goes on pizza. We can have a disagreement on what institutions deserve money. We cannot have a friendship where we're disagreeing on who gets basic human rights and dignity. That's just not going to happen. Yep. $10 from the Raven 200. Spy X Family is an anime about a secret spy who has to start a fake family to get close enough to a high valued target. The wife he gains is a secret assassin, and he adopts a little girl who can read minds. That sounds like an anime. Fuck.
That's your definite. It's not a Pornhub category, Jimmy. So
you're telling me that exact chat isn't also the description of a porn video anywhere? Okay.
Could be. I'm sure you go check later tonight. I don't know. $5 from
Rule 34, my friend.
Jimmy will be checking this.
Rule 34, my friend.
$5 from Rose Red R10. I'd like to visit various mythological heavens just to see what they're like, then probably do a video game Afterlife. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. That would be a fun experiment.
I would love to see a video game where you have to like navigate your way through various mythological afterlives. That would be fucking dope. Like you get lost in one and have to fight your way through several.
I'd like to just relive my adult life, but with cheat codes.
There you go.
Tight. Yeah,
knowing what you know now.
I would love to see the theists in the comments right now or watching this. Like, see, you won an afterlife too. It's like because I can hear we've been doing this so long. I can hear it. And it's like what you just said is so poignant. I would also like to be able to fly, but I'm not sitting here hinging my worldview on that desire. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, $5 and too young to feel as old. Star Wars needed bad comic relief in Jar Jar, just like the line needs bad comic relief in Jimmy Snow. Love that.
I'm going to let this one go because I think I gave you shit earlier, but you're on thin ice.
Thin ice and too young. $5 from the Raven 200. Also, Jimmy, go give a purple nurple to an angry hippocampus. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. I love Raven. They just make up new insults for Jimmy. Here's one for you, of course.
$5 more from Raven. Was hippopotamus? No, a hippocampus was a mythological creature and a part of your brain. Twist them both. Fuck them. Do it.
Anybody want to come over and twist my hippocampus after this?
Hot.
5 Canadian alleged dollars from Cherry 411. Have you read When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi? Highly recommend. I have not. That sounds interesting. I'll take a look at that. Thank you, Cherry.
It'll be on Forrest's bookshelf one way or another.
Yeah, I bet it will pretty soon because like, if it's any good. Yeah, I'll look it up. Sounds cool. Oh, shit. Look at that.
Y'all are closing out.
Patreon producers, there you are. We thank you for your support. Once again, it's patreon.com/calltheline. Thank you for all that support. We love you guys. Thank you, all the super chats. We can get a little verbose in our reading of the super chats, but you deserve that kind of attention from us. So thank you. Thank you, Margan, for we had a lot of calls that we didn't get to tonight. I guess they got dropped or whatever, but call back next week. See ya.
Yep. See you later. Bye. I don't know how long.